Dow is it's a very large global company. We have about 45,000 employees. Our annual sales in 2004 were about $40 billion. We operate, I believe, in 34, we have manufacturing plants in 34 countries. We sell in about 170 countries. So we're a very large global company. I'm the global accounting director and again have global responsibility for all accounting transaction processes. I report to the corporate controller who reports to the CFO and on into the CEO. So that's kind of how we report organizationally into the company. The compliance group, they report directly to the controller, or the director of that does, and she's got a small staff. They communicate, I think it's about 7 times a year to the audit committee. The progress that's going on with all the work around Sarbanes-Oxley Section 404, and they are responsible to make sure that the entire program is, organized and is working well within the company. The global accounting group, it's process leaders that report to me that have responsibility globally for their work process. For example, there's an order-to-cash global leader, there's a financial accounting global leader, there's a procure-to-pay global leader, etc. And they have responsibility again globally for their work process. They're responsible for documenting the work process, for ensuring the processes are followed at the different organizations that they're responsible for. They're all responsible for service centers that are located around the world. We have 4 service centers, 1 in each of the major geographies, 1 in North America, 1 in Latin America, 1 in the Pacific, and 1 in Europe. So they're responsible to make sure that all 4 organizations are aligned and following the same procedures. Now they do have a strong interface with the compliance team that we have, which is a small group of individuals. And the compliance group is really responsible to set the tone, to develop the tools and the procedures, the timelines. They do a lot of coordination with the internal auditors and external auditors about when the audits are going to be. We don't want to overwhelm a group. We have auditors in there for 12 weeks in a row, which we've had happen in the past, and we try to avoid that. But they also put out the requirements from self-assessments. What's the timing required? They also summarize that for the company. So there's a real strong interface. They report to me, but they do work very closely with the compliance team. Internal controls have always been very important for the people in our group in the accounting side. So it's always been a requirement of the job. They needed to address that. So I think what it really did, though, it formalized that requirement. It really strengthened and highlighted the need for that across the accounting group. It forced a greater need for documentation, for clear documentation than was there in the past. There's no doubt about that. But I think the real change for me wasn't within the accounting group. It was outside of the accounting group. It was with all the other functions of our company, and I think it's the same with most companies. Whether you look at the sales organization, the purchasing organization, supply chain, manufacturing, those folks are doing things every day that have internal control components to them, whether it's negotiating contracts and getting those approved, doing physical inventory verifications, whatever. They're all internal controls, and I think for them they didn't always understand the importance of that, and that those controls really do feed into the financial statement. So we've done a pretty large job going out and communicating and educating those people on the needs for that and how it does pull everything together, and the requirements about Sarbanes-Oxley related to that. Documentation and the procedures, we really need to make sure that they're consistent, and we're a very centralized company, and we really start at the top. So our global work process leaders, they're responsible to ensure that the documentation is consistently used throughout all 4 service centers. So we started from a top-down approach. They develop the documentation. They get a global agreement on what are the policies and procedures for that work process. They go through an education process around the globe. We've got one common system which certainly facilitates those policies and procedures being complied with. Now there are a few exceptions. There's exceptions basically because of local tax or legal restrictions. Certain countries require for VAT reasons or other local, legislated reasons, certain documentation type things that have to be different. So we need to comply with those. But I think it's the 90-10 rule versus everybody starting on their own. We really haven't made significant changes in our software. Again, we have one platform. We use SAP globally, so that's made it pretty simple compared to a lot of companies. It was by no means simple, but to go through our assessment process. What we did do is early on we took an off-the-shelf software package. There were a number of them out there to use to be our repository for all of our internal control documentation, and also to be the repository for our self-assessments, and also to drive our self-assessment process. We knew when we got it that it was not going to be state-of-the-art. It probably wasn't going to be a long-term solution, but it would work for a few years until the market kind of shook itself out and some of the better technologies emerged. And recently we went through that process, and we've selected a technology that we're going to use in the next, starting in 2006. We're going to do a very large parallel for the rest of the year, and then beginning in 2006 we'll go full force with the new software. One of the critical criteria we were looking for was to have an ASP, an application service provider. That's one of the things that we always look for in unique applications that are not core to our business. That they can house the software and manage it for us. It's something that we don't want to necessarily bring in-house and manage it ourselves. So when we put that criteria on the table, it certainly eliminated a number of the prospects out there, and we got it down to a handful. Obviously we have a very rigorous process we go through for vendor selection. We had our IT folks and our finance folks primarily were the ones that went through a very thorough and exhaustive process to select the final supplier. We set up about 2.5 years ago a series of bi-weekly meetings. As a matter of fact, we schedule them at the beginning of the year throughout the whole year. We meet every 2 weeks for about 2 hours. It's a team of about 30 individuals. There are the handful from the compliance team, and then the rest are work process leaders. We've got some geography representatives. We've got some business representatives, but primarily they're work process leaders. And again, we meet every 2 weeks, and the goals of those meetings are to make sure that everybody, well, first off, it was to make sure everybody understood the requirements of Sarbanes-Oxley. It was a great educational effort, and to get buy-in on what we were trying to do, because certainly at the beginning there was denial. People, it was a huge effort, and people didn't necessarily understand the need to comply. So it was education, and then it was a work process development to make sure that we consistently applied this around the world. We use a series of, we call them net meetings or telephone meetings, because a lot of people are located at our headquarters, but a lot of them are outside in other parts of the world. So we have an interactive meeting that way. We also have a steering team, which is made up of executive management. There's about 8 or 9 people on that representing different functions like IT, manufacturing, supply chain, finance, etc. And we meet once a month, and we take the input from the compliance team and understand, what are the goals. We're just making sure that things are happening on a timely basis, that the requirements are being met. We kind of run interference if there's areas in the company that don't seem to be reacting as timely as they need to, or certain issues, we'll go address those. We've got the horsepower to make sure that they get those addressed. We've measured that historically by benchmarking with some premier external benchmark provider. We've done that for about 12 years now. When we started out, we had a long ways to grow, and a lot of areas to improve upon. Our initial goal, this goes back to 1993, was to be in the top 25% of the first quartile of companies. And we achieved that several years ago. We were very proud of that. We set up a new target, which was to be in the top 10%, which they consider world-class companies. And 2 years ago, we were very satisfied when we achieved that. So now it's just a matter of maintaining. I think it's hard to get much better when you're that productive. But the other thing is, from a internal control compliance, there's really not, my knowledge, on the other half, if you want to balance it, there's not a good benchmark out there. There's not any that I'm aware of. So what we do to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and we're on the latest edge or using the best practices, is we dialogue a lot with peer companies through different associations and this type of thing. And we exchange ideas and see what's working, what's not, what problems we're having, what problems they're having, and try to move forward with the best process.